women have to feel good to play well, and guys have to play well to feel good.
The power of pushing people past what others think is comfortable. And I see it today as a mother. I see it as a business person. The ability to really put your hands behind your back and learn how to block properly so that you can do your job is so powerful. And the ability to earn my position. I didn't get my position, I earned my position.
Failures is part of your success. You're going to fail in your life someplace, and how to overcome that is part of this.
So today in the bullpen, we have somebody very special. The real Coach Nelson, the one and only father to Jessica Nelson, Mr. Jay Nelson. Jay is most well known for having won 2 Big East championships at Seton Hall. You also had quite the record at Mountain Lakes High School before that, correct?
Yes, 3 state championships.
And in his first year as head coach at Rutgers University, he took them to their first Big East championship or Big East tournament, and then the first Big Ten tournament, correct?
Not in the first year, no, but it was later on. Yes, we did.
So, huge career as a softball coach. And then more recently, he was named as the head coach of the Greek Olympic softball team, Mr. Jay Nelson.
Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction. I feel, although this bullpen is a little different than the ones I'm used to,
A little bit more mud in those.
I feel pretty comfortable.
Good. I'm glad, Dad. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here is because you have a very different philosophy than most coaches, even that I played for, that I see, today coaching kids. You really tend to coach not to the most talented, but to the most hungry, the hardest working, the most ethical, the best team players. Is that still accurate?
Yes, but I coach the team sport, and really, to be successful in a team sport, you need to stress those things and working together as a team, and how each person has to hold themselves accountable, and you hold your teammates accountable, and that's how you reach success.
Okay. Do you think that that's really common with what you're seeing today in the sport?
It's hard to tell. I know that the coaches that I worked with um, have pretty much the same philosophy.
And who were some of those coaches?
Well, I still actively I have a camp owned by myself, Bill Edwards, the retired head coach from Hofstra and in the NFCA Hall of Fame, and Roy Cortman, who is the present coach at LIU, and he's been there a long time. So, those are the things. We run camps and we base our philosophy in teaching the athletes that come there on, how to succeed, not only, in softball, but in life. We teach them about, we bring in guest speakers, and you'd be a good speaker for this, about online presence and how to use it positively instead of posting things that are negative and can hurt, your brand name.
Okay. Awesome. So what other feedback can you give to, young coaches coming up who are maybe watching this or parents of young athletes?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we try to install, or I try to install in athletes, is how to rely on themselves and how to get better and how to deal with failure to improve yourself. So in today's world, some programs just focus on winning, which winning is a big part of it, but it doesn't necessarily help in your development. You can win, and I've played with people who won and who had very difficult times in their life afterwards. So really learning how to deal with, uh, failures is part of your success. You're going to fail in your life someplace, and how to overcome that is part of this. And that's, in my day when I was growing up, like our parents didn't come to all our games, and they didn't, interfere. They didn't go to coaches and say, you know, my son's got to play, or we're going to go someplace else. Basically, it was, they said, well, if you want, my parents would say, well, if you want to play, you need to get better.
Yeah.
So, that really, that attitude has, some people still have it. And I think coaches, coaches' sons and daughters tend to have that more than the normal athlete.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like it's the opposite based on what I've seen recently. The sons and daughters tend to have a lot of nepotism. They think they are owed it just because they're always used to getting it.
Well, that's true too. But I mean, the ones that are good and that succeed are the ones that are their coaches, their parents as coaches push them to do things on their own.
Mm-hmm. Jackie Tarulli is probably one of them. She works real hard now.
Yeah, she's a great athlete.
Yeah.
I worked with Jackie in her young days, her high school days.
And she could have everything easy because of who her dad is, but she still worked hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you were to think back on like some of your favorite players you ever coached, you don't have to say their names, but what are some common characteristics in those players?
Well, I won't name this player, but I remember coaching at Rutgers, and you can go into the record book and figure out who it is. But before our season was over, we would have a banquet, and we would actually have the banquet on a Friday night, and we would be playing on Saturday the next day. So one of these banquets, we were done with the banquet, and I thought it might rain, and I knew that our field was covered, but I didn't think the bullpens were covered. So, it was dark, and I drove down to the field, and as it was dark, I got out of the car, and I heard this ping, 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 and it was one of my athletes in the batting cage hitting off a tee at night. And she saw me drive up, and she came out and she said, "Do you need some help, coach?" So there was both the servant leader there, somebody who was willing to help her team and go do the things necessary, and somebody the necessary to compete, like covering the bullpens and working on her skills to get better. And she hit 22 home runs that year. So that was one of the players. There are a number of players, that's the one that came off the top of my head. If I went back, I have so many players that when I coached in high school, we had 3 state championships, and every one of those teams had a deaf player on it, because we were the sending district for the hard of hearing. And all of our teammates, it was a unique situation, because their teammates would take sign language so that they could communicate, and it helped our team as a whole, because I sometimes wouldn't have to go out and talk to the pitcher. We would sign it in. Mm-hmm. And the other teams, like maybe if they knew our secret, they would have taken sign language. But it did help us win games. So it was a positive, and it was a team effort where everybody did something extra to go out of the ordinary.
So you just educated me on something. Great coaches don't just have favorite players, they have favorite teams.
That's true. It's funny, because that brings me to another point where you get accused of having a favorite player. Um, yeah, coaches do have favorite players. They have the players that work hard and do what they ask them, and like the player that helped me with the field, and ones you see that go out for extra practice on their own. Uh, you know, yeah, we do have favorite players. We don't really necessarily like to see our players taking the easy way out because when you're in the 15th inning of a game and it's the second game of a doubleheader, you're exhausted mentally and physically. So you're going to need a little extra, and you're going to need your teammates to pick you up to get you through that win. And there was another player, a young lady, Misty Beaver, who was my very first recruit. Who
He can say that name because she's like another daughter to him.
Yeah, and she was my first recruit. A great family. They had me in for dinner when I came to visit. She was one of the pitchers that helped turn the Seton Hall program around and lead us to our first Big East tournament. And back in those days, they would only take 4 teams out of the 12. So, and we would come in first or second until 2004 and 2005 when we won the Big East championship. But Misty was a tremendously hard worker, and she also became my first assistant coach when I was offered the job at Rutgers, because she had integrity and she was honest and she was a God-fearing person. One of the main reasons that I asked her was because in coaching you have time limits. The NCAA puts time limits on you, and in practice you can only have a total of 4 hours a day, and that's not just practice. That's strength and conditioning. That's anything.
Pitchers and catchers.
Right.
Yeah.
All of that. And so when I would get into a team practice, she had a stopwatch. And she would go, "Coach, you got 10 minutes." And then if I was in the middle of something, I would cut it off. But she abided by the rules. And I know, being in the business long enough, that many coaches avoid the rules. And it's not a good precedent to set with your athletes, to let them know you can break the rules as long as you win. Because you can't do that in life. I mean, most of the time, if you go too fast, you get a speeding ticket. You get away with it for a long time until somebody catches you.
Yep.
So
you bring up a really interesting point. There's a lot of whispering right now in the NCAA about certain teams, and I don't want to start controversy, but where is your position on some of the things that you started to see when you were leaving D1 coaching?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed about, or just in my situation, was the athletic directors are becoming more intimidated by parents, and they're, collapsing to the will of the parents. I think your old-time athletic directors who backed their coaches, as long as they weren't, breaking the rules and they were encouraging players. I mean, like, one of the best athletic directors I thought we had at Rutgers was Tim Pernetti, where Tim knew all of my players. He knew every one of their names.
And he was there during Shiano's reign, correct?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I actually had a parent go to him and say, why is he playing the top team in the nation, when we played Arizona State and they won the national championship that year, the year that we played them. And he came to me and said, "Don't worry, I got your back. I know what you're doing. You play those teams so your team
Can get better."
can see what they need to do to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And until they realize what they're doing now is not enough to be, a national championship, they're going to stay in that same rut. So you need to work with them. But he knew all our players' names. And then I've had other athletic directors' names who was introduced to one of our players who was in the, SAC, which is the government body of it. And she was introduced to him 5 times and still didn't know her name. So, the athletes that are playing want to know that the school has as much, is invested in them, that cares about them as a person.
Do you feel that it had anything to do with it being female athletes?
No, I mean, maybe that was. I mean, the athletic director that didn't know the person's name, that could have been, but Tim Pernetti knew everybody's name. He knew but he was invested in Rutgers because he went to school there, and it gave him a great beginning on life, and he played football there. So he understood what it was like to be an athlete and how much it meant to have, to have your back and for the school to stick up for you.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding you correctly, the programs are hurt by these athletic directors who don't support the coaches and then acquiesce to the parents or the donors.
In many cases, yes.
Yeah.
In some cases. I wouldn't say many cases because I don't know all the teams. I know that there's like roughly 300 teams that participate in Division I softball, and I've heard some good coaches lose their jobs because of parental complaints. Now, that's not to say that there aren't valid complaints. There are, but playing time is not a valid complaint, or making up excuses because your kid doesn't have playing time. There are very few athletes that complain that are batting 400 and playing every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are some coaches out there that are unscrupulous and will take meal money and do other things that are not, that are against the law. Basically, they're breaking NCAA rules, and it's fraudulent. And, that should be dealt with accordingly.
What are some of the things that you witnessed while you were coaching other coaches, other programs? You don't have to name the program, but what were some of the violations that you witnessed happening?
Well, I don't really want to get into the problems. I did see a coach. They're technical rules with the NCAA, like you're not supposed to have communication with the athletes during their competition, and the rules are very picky. But I did see coaches that would on the side, take a player, behind a building or something and talk to him, and it was questionable whether it was really a violation, and technically I was in violation for not turning them in, but I didn't know what their relationship was with the athlete.
They could be related.
Right.
Yeah.
Something. So, but anyway, violations happen. I mean, even, there are even accusations against UCLA and Coach Wooden, Coach Wooden was not the one violating the rules, but he had somebody that was a donor violate the rules. And you can say you didn't know about it, but you really should know about it. So
extreme leadership.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we see this with CEOs that maybe they didn't know about, the missing funds or the misappropriation or whatever's going on, but they're supposed to know. It's part of their job. So a coach should be the same way. They should know what's going on under their leadership. So I want to ask you a very different question, which I could tell you're getting a little uncomfortable with me asking about violations. When you first started in your career, you actually were coaching boys, correct? Baseball.
No,
So I remember you telling me maybe you helped Mr. Bolton at some point in time. I think he was doing men's baseball.
no, it was softball.
He was always
Yeah.
softball. But I remember you being asked by somebody, well, why don't you coach baseball? And you made the comment, the girls are actually a lot easier to coach because they don't have so much of the ego and they're more receptive to coaching. Do you remember making that
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, I do.
I thought someone had tried to get you to be a baseball coach when you stopped playing baseball.
Somebody, I've been asked that, but I told them I'd rather coach women. And I mean, and the question was asked after I was coaching for a while. And remember, I played men's fast pitch at the top levels, or I coached it um, until I was 49 years old.
But you played baseball growing up and you played
Yes.
in semi-pro and
Yeah, but men's fast pitch is like baseball. That men, their attitude is the same. And, you know, it's funny. Men will get into a fight on a field and then, the next day they're teammates again. And women won't do that, though. But women do. Women have to feel good to play well. And this is Coach Candrea says this all the time. And guys have to play well and feel good. So that that's kind of and it like if you talk to a group of guys and you say some of you guys are slacking off, they'll all point at each other. And if you say that to a group of women, they'll go, "Oh, is that me he's talking about? Is that me he's talking about?" I think that it's changing, and I think that you can see some of the really good women's athletes are getting more sense of a confidence in themselves where they don't have to they don't feel that way. They're confident in themselves and their abilities. But as young girls, it's been socialized into them that, and you can still see it every day. Like when women are paid the same, and um, and let me back up. If I go to like one of the great women coaches of all time, Hutch from Michigan, right? She would bring up a very controversial issue in NCAA softball. She wanted to see women coaching women, and if I was younger and just into coaching at the D1 level, and I was kind of offended by that. I said, well, that's discrimination. As I coached longer and stayed in the sport longer, I saw her point. Like, if an equal amount of women were allowed to umpire baseball games and broadcast baseball games and football games and all the rest of the sports, then it would be even. Then you could, have men. That's how I got her point, is that, she was advocating for young women to be equal. And this was their sport, and they wanted more women to be involved in it.
do you think you would have come to understood that if you weren't a father to a girl, if you were a father to just a boy?
I don't know about that, but what I do know is that earlier in my career I would have never understood that. Later in my career, I do understand it, and I see it getting better all the time. You see NFL female referees. You see female baseball coaches, hitting coaches, major league female coaches. So it is getting better. It's a slow crawl. They need to pick it up. But I saw it all my career, right? I saw an instance somewhere along the line. I won't say it so people don't get all upset, but there was a place where the men's program had a facility. There was a facility that we had to split, and the men had the batting cage, and we had nothing. Like we had our own equipment. We had to set up things. But because I was involved in camps, I set up like 14 stations in this place, so everybody was doing something. On the baseball side, there were like 3 pitchers and catchers throwing to each other, and a pitcher and a catcher and a hitter in the batting cage, so a lot of guys standing around. The athletic director came in with the superintendent and into my side and said, "Oh, we can't do this in here. Somebody's going to get hurt with all this going on." Nobody ever got hurt. The girls knew what to do. It was, all our precautions were. And I said to them, "Well, how about we take the other side? We go into the other side." And they said, "Well, we couldn't do that." Well, I said, "Well, how about what about Title IX? How about I go to the parents with this?" And so they said, "No, no, you can continue doing what you're doing."
Now you know where I get it from.
But
It gives them 2 options, and the last one they won't like.
well, and only at that point I was a very successful coach, and
Yeah.
they didn't want to get rid of me. So and in college sports, it's a little different. I mean, you have to be in the top level to be able to push your agenda, and you still can't push your agenda when it comes to, we shared the football practice facility with football in the wintertime, and we were thankful to get time in there. But all the sports programs had time in there. I don't know what it's like at some of the bigger facilities. It would be interesting, to look at that to see how the bigger football programs, whether they took facilities away from other programs. But my guess is not. But college athletics it's such a huge money game that it dominates a lot of the decisions that are made. So it's kind of a whole different animal. But when you're dealing with the athletes, I think athletes athletics are just another class in school as you're going through high school, grammar school, wherever they offer the first athletic sports. It's just another class. It's teaching you discipline. It's teaching you character. It's teaching you how to work with your teammates. So it's just another class, and that's the way it is. In fact, when I worked in high school, I was there for 12 years, and some of those times I had to teach my players how to throw and catch, at least one, and we did very well.
Like the first thing you learn in softball.
Yeah. So because we came from a very academic school and very, they were interested. The parents, I think, were more interested in football.
And most of those kids went to Ivy League schools, right?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of them did anyway. But the point is that, they learned how to do these things, and but going back to the difference between men and women, we won 3 state championships on the same day that the boys lacrosse team won 3 their state championships. Every day it was a Saturday, and it was the same day that the championship was being run.
Gotcha. So different years,
3 different years.
Got it.
Same day. Lacrosse team came into town and got a police and fire escort, fire truck escort through the town on the main road. The women got nothing. So even one time I thought it would be nice to have it because I knew that they were doing it for the lacrosse team. So I called and said, "Hey, can you get this out?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." No, we got them out legs. Nothing happened. We didn't get
And what year was that in?
Well, we won in 88, 91, and 93.
Do you believe it's still the same way 30, 40 years later?
I think it's better. I don't know that it's the same way. And I know that all the way through our career, we had to do the extra things like fix the fields. And I don't
Oh,
mean
I remember you dragging those fields.
just in high school. We had to do some work in college too. So, um, I'm sure that the Oklahomas and the Wisconsins and the Alabamas don't have to work on their own fields. So, it has changed for some programs, and it's a financial thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't have enough for a crew to take care of your fields, you're leaving it to one or two people, and their jobs are spread out. So it's not their fault either. It's basically a financial thing.
Yeah, but money goes where attention flows.
Yeah.
And if no one's paying attention to it, the money's not going to go there. So I understand what you're saying. But it does seem like there has been some advancement in the time since that happened in 40 years, because you're mentioning Oklahoma, you're mentioning programs where the girls are starting to really, I mean, the Oklahoma females are probably more well known than most of the male sports there. So we
Except
are
for
seeing
football.
some advancement.
Yeah.
That's good.
And there are some really good teams and some good coaches out there at the top levels. So it's not all negative. I think it's 90%. It's funny that 90% of the positivity gets outweighed by the 10% of the negativity. And that's the same relationship with your team. If you have 90% of your team is doing a great job and working hard, that 10% is can ruin your team.
Mm-hmm.
And a long time ago, my mentor Frank Bolton told me a little story about a class he had, and a classmate that I knew, right? So he would always like throw this kid out of class and work to get him to come back, and he wanted to be a positive influence on his life.
Mm-hmm.
But he was working in his yard one day, and there was a pile of logs there, and he went. He was loading them in a wheelbarrow, and one of the logs was laying kind of off the side as it was going around a corner. He tried to catch it with the wheelbarrow, and it tipped out all the logs. So his point of that, he realized, I'm trying to take care of this one kid, and I'm losing the rest of my class.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way.
See that all the time in business too.
Yeah, and it's the same way with the team. Sometimes it's just better to get rid of them. And after and I don't mean just cut them or let them go, call them in and have a talk and say, look, you need to change your attitude or you can go. And I've had this discussion a couple times and with kids that were on scholarship. And I said, you can keep your scholarship, but if you don't change your way, you can't be on the team.
So Frank Bolton's log theory.
Yeah.
Don't let your whole wheelbarrow fall out for that one log you're trying to catch. In the time that you are focused on that one player and trying to help them, you may lose your whole team. This is a really valuable piece of advice if you're really listening to what Coach Nelson just said. Before you said something, and I think that you deserve to be acknowledged for it, you were coaching women's sports in really kind of a very beginning stage for women's sports. And I'm going to acknowledge you as being a pioneer on that frontier, because I remember how you used to fight for women's sports. And I do want to say that, you'd probably be the same way if you had a son, but maybe you just wanted to pave a path for me. And I'm super appreciative of it because, would we have the opportunity? I now lead a team of men, a Marine drill sergeant. would I have had these opportunities if I didn't have a dad like you showing me what's possible and fighting for me? I don't know, Dad.
Well, I I think that I would want to. I think that having a daughter made me aware of it, and that I wanted things to be better for my daughter. I didn't know it at the time. My granddaughters, and the rest of the women out there. I mean, because that's like our whole country is built on that. We're all equal.
Yep.
Even though at the beginning we weren't. We couldn't vote, and they finally realized the value of women and how much they've suppressed women in the past.
And not just women,
oh, not just women, no,
minorities as well,
minorities as well. But
which your granddaughters are both
the yes,
women and minority.
the problem when you do that is you are suppressing minds that could expand, the future of the human race in ways you never knew could happen.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I just talked about her a little earlier, a player. And, if I had this much to do with her career, right, I'm happy with it. But she is now, like, she sets up, I'm trying to think of the company, but they go into high schools and revamp their education programs, and they do it internationally. I'm trying to Educare, I believe, is the name of the company, and if you Google it, you'll see what an amazing program it is. And
One of your players was also involved with the RBI program too, right?
yes, same class. Well, not the same class, same team. She helped begin the RBI program in Harlem. She was a Penn graduate, brilliant kid. So I was fortunate to work with some really brilliant women with great work ethics. I had one of the women that was on one of my teams didn't want to go away to college because of an abusive situation in the family, and didn't want to leave her brother by himself. But she did. She went away and she became very successful. Sometimes we have to make those hard decisions, and her contribution to the world has been enormous. But when you credit me with being a pioneer, yes, thank you. I appreciate that very much, and I have to credit all of my former coaches who have led me to. Some of them weren't. Some of them were just great at being baseball players, and some of them were great team leaders, and some of them, they all had something different to teach me. And then my association with women's college softball, and being associated with or getting to know some fantastic coaches, and some fantastic mentors has helped me in my coaching career. But like I try to tell all
Coaches have coaches.
and like I tell my philosophy in a team is there's a thread that runs from the beginning to infinity with a team, and all the players down that started it have something to do with where the program is today. Even if they weren't the most successful, they kept the program going with their love for the game, so that they contributed to it. No matter where it is, those of us today have to give thanks to them. It's a thread that runs through time, and all programs have it, and all successful programs keep the people that were involved in the team involved throughout their whole lifetime.
It's true. It's a deep thought. Switching gears.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned earlier your granddaughters. One of them plays softball. I'm the parent that he talks about that's annoying. So we tend to remove me from the situation and put her with him. But it's an interesting story how you came to be the Greek Olympic coach. Can I tell the story?
Yeah, sure.
So, how old are you?
How old am I now or then?
Well, how old are you now? And I guess
I'm
you had a
71
birthday.
now. I'm 71
So
now.
you were 70.
Yeah.
Haley, his granddaughter, is learning how to hit. And he throws mid 50s, low 50s. So he throws from about
From
50,
30
from 30 feet away. Yeah.
with a net.
So he pitches to her in Veterans Park in Old Bridge, New Jersey. My parents still live in New Jersey. You're a Jersey boy. You'll die in Jersey, right?
Yeah, except I was born in New Orleans.
Interesting, but you're a Jersey guy.
Yeah.
So she goes every summer, and he's been working with her on her hitting. And it just so happens that, a family starts talking to him. And I'll let you tell the rest of the story.
Well, a young lady came over, high school age, and asked us if we'd like to go work out with her and her dad. We said, sure, because then you get somebody to field when you're hitting, and it just goes faster. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so we went over and we worked out, and I had her father talk to Haley, so she wasn't just hearing my voice in direction. And she also got to work a little bit with the high school athlete. And, so we worked out, and he, we talked afterwards. He said he coached the Greek 18 and under team, and he also coached some other teams. And he asked me if I'd be interested in coaching a travel team. And I said, absolutely not.
And Haley's sitting there and she's like, why not, Gogi?
Because of the politics involved with it. And, so a few weeks later, he called and said, would you be interested in coaching the Greek national team? And that sparked my interest because of the history of the Olympics that were started in Greece. So once again, here you go. You're going with the string of the Olympics. And to be part of that, whatever part, and even if we, whatever effort we put into it, we're part of the Greek Olympic program. So so I said, yeah, I would be interested. Let me think about it a little bit. And I discussed it with Gail, my wife, and she actually pushed me to it. So,
and you had been completely retired,
yeah, for 5
no
years.
interested in coaching again, just wanted to be a grandparent in the stands.
Yeah, and coach Haley and Kenzie and work with them. I didn't want to coach a team. I wanted to work with them. And but when this opportunity came about, I agreed to it, and coached the first. We had a team camp in Florida this year, and I had a lot of fun. It was only Coach Beaver and myself who.
That's not her last name anymore.
Jenkins. Well, yeah.
She got married.
Yeah, yeah. That's a different story. I'll let her tell you her story.
Coach Misty.
But Coach Misty and I worked with 20 athletes in Florida, and as I predicted, I said, go warm up. And this is the first thing you want to watch as a coach. And that's when we recruited, we would go early and watch kids warm up because they're not really warming up. They're just throwing the ball back and forth, creating a lot of bad habits and not sticking to the fundamentals. So I stopped them in the middle of it. I said, how many of you guys have been taught to warm up? And none of them have been taught. And the coach just says, go warm up. And really, that's where it starts. A lot of throwing injuries occur from improper throwing because of the habits they pick up warming up. So anyways, we started there and we went into some other parts of hitting it was a short camp, but it was one, an evaluation of the players at that level, and two, it was to help them improve themselves. And I think, and to get to know them and have them know me a little better and my philosophies, and it was very good, um, and it was a fun time. I do work the camp I said I own with Coach Roy and Coach Bill. And
What's the name of that camp?
It's Rise Ball, Camp Rise Ball.
You can find it on Instagram, RiseBall360.
Yeah, and great guys. We're all like-minded in
You guys are like brothers, right?
we're like-minded in everything that we teach, and how um, you know character comes before everything else. The Greek team is it's going to be interesting this summer. This is the first summer that it's for me that it's happening, and
What's on the travel schedule? Where can people see you play?
well, the Canadian Cup is the first one, and then there's
Where is that being
I think
held?
it's in Surrey, BC, British Columbia.
And when is it, roughly?
It's the first week.
June?
Yeah,
June
it's
28th and 29th?
but it goes into to July,
Okay. So that's a Canadian Cup.
and then the European Cup. I'm not exactly sure. I think that's in August.
Is that in the Netherlands?
I don't know if I've gotten the information yet.
Gotcha.
We're having a conference call this week to pick the team and to discuss
The details.
the details.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the best place if you guys want to follow the Greek team is on they have their own Instagram. It's Hellas, HELLAS. You'll be able to find it, softball program. And then I do also believe that there is a website you can check out as well. Are there any players right now that you would like to invite to the Greek team?
We're still identifying them, and if there are any Greek players out there who would like to be involved in the national team program, please contact us, and you can go onto the website, the Hellas website.
You can also reach out to me and I'll connect you.
Um,
What positions are you guys still looking for?
we're looking for every position. I mean, it's if you're better than the player that's in that position, we're looking for you. And that's the way all teams work. It's funny when we go back to, people that, want to have their children play against other, before another child. It's like, how many coaches do you know that want to lose?
None.
None, right? So in their opinion, they're playing the best person that gives them the chance to win. And yes, there are times when you have to rest a player to play another player. When you
Sure. Coaches don't get paid to be popular; they get paid to win.
and the other thing is sometimes you have to discipline a player, and then you'll hold them out and have somebody else in. I had that unfortunate situation where I had a couple of players that would pop the ball up and walk or jog to first base instead of running it out, where they might have gotten to second base if somebody dropped it. And I suspended both of them from playing. I said, "You guys are not going to be able to play. You can dress. You can come and sit on a. You will dress. You will come and sit on a bench. You will watch your teammates, and you will cheer for them. You will be able to play again. You can play as soon as tomorrow if you go and apologize to your teammates for your behavior." The freshman apologized right away. The senior waited till the weekend was over to do it.
Interesting.
And
Ego
her
tends
father
to get in the
called
way.
me and agreed with what what I had done. So not that I really like
So we get it. The best player
Plays.
plays. And if you are of Greek citizenship, Greek nationality, and you would like to join the Greek Olympic team, there is still space for you, but you need to act quickly and reach out to either myself, Jay, or the LS team and, get yourself on the schedule to be seen. I want to switch back to something. We had talked earlier about advice for coaches and what coaches can look for. I have two questions for you for parents. The first question is really, what can parents do to support their athlete, and how should parents act with coaches? Because that's come up. And the second question, which you're probably going to want to answer first, when I was playing, you protected me from some things that occur in sports. My high school coach spent 8 years in federal penitentiary for doing things with players, and it never happened to me. I guess as a dad or as a coach, what is some advice you can give to people to protect them the way that you protected me?
Well, be there as much as you can with your child. That's one of the things. And when you're not, make sure you have absolute trust in the people that you leave them with. You can also do background checks on people, which, I had a background check done on me every year at Rutgers, which it surprised me to find out that another coach there had no background check and was asked to leave the program. But I think that's part of it. And the other part is to do your homework, right? Ask them where they, what their history was in coaching, not just wins and losses, where they came from, what programs they've coached, and if they have a gap in the space of their coaching, ask them about, well, what did you do then, and then call around, ask people that know them, ask coaches. It's a very disturbing, to know that your child could be harmed by somebody, and I think it was very clear to all the coaches that you played for that there'd be a severe consequence for it, and
So that was kind of the point I was getting to.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have 100% trust in this person, but
No.
you loved the school.
Yes.
To be clear, the reason why he put me in that high school is because of the education. But as a parent, it seemed to me like maybe you had gone out of your way to set boundaries that protected me.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, you can set all the boundaries you want, and in some cases, they're not going to help. But you can take courses in identifying predators, which I think most colleges have them. I know that Rutgers, we had to take courses in predators, and you need to ask your children questions, and you need to see their behavioral changes to see if they're being being harmed. So, and you need to be very clear about it with anybody that asks you, is that your child means the most to you, and that we will take extreme measures to make sure that you don't do this again.
And it's also having that difficult conversation with your child
Yes.
and not avoiding it. You had check-ins with me often.
Yeah.
Both of you did.
Well, and you're in real estate now, right? And somebody in my past who had helped me when I first moved to California gave me a lot of work. She was a single mom realtor, and she had two sons. And what I noticed when they got back from school, boom, they were on the phone. They called their mom to make sure that she knew that they got home safely. And they had those check-ins. And, for especially for a single parent, right, who's stretched thin in their time, it can be very difficult. But those check-ins and knowing your child's behavior and when it changes and asking them the questions, understandingly of, did something go wrong today or trying to figure out what's going on and making sure that they're doing well. And it's a big, it's a big responsibility, and it's one that we need to do. We need to take.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
And the other thing you were talking about is, when you're, if you're looking at colleges as an athlete, do your own work, right? Don't have your parents call for you, write your letters, or when you go for your visit, don't let your parents answer questions that are directed to you. Ask them, please let me answer the questions. Because I want to know, your personality to see if I can work with you, and you're there to see if you can work with me, right? I'm going to have to deal with your parents, and I don't want to be calling them and talking to them all the time, which I wouldn't do. But make sure that and if you have to write an essay, I know that there's some programs out there, because I used to get emails that would say, "Dear Coach," and it would have another coach's name on it, because they were filling in blanks. Do it on your own. Like,
Make it real.
find 10 schools that you're really interested in, or 20, whatever it is, whatever you have the time to research and you want to look at. And if softball or whatever the sport is that you're interested in, go into their roster. Like, you'll notice that UCLA doesn't take a lot of players from out of state. Most of their players are from California.
And Southern California mostly, too.
And it was really that way years ago, right? So your dream to go to UCLA was probably not going to happen.
Unless you were from,
Southern California.
Yeah.
But now maybe it's more, you might have a chance if you're a really great player. But make sure that you do your homework. You go in there, you see what players are graduating the year that you're coming in at your position. You are much more valuable if you can play 3 or 4 positions. And you're really much more valuable if you have great grades. Because if you can get an academic scholarship, they don't have to spend a lot of money on you in their scholarship, in the athletic scholarship, so they can go out and get another player. But make sure that you try to find a connection. We don't need to go back to your T-ball league, and you were the best player in T-ball. But what will make an impression is, I saw Sally, your third baseman, play. She's a great player, or I know her, and she has great things to say about the program. So that immediately gives you a tie and an opening to a coach to maybe
A connection.
Yeah, a connection where they're going to spark an interest. So find that, and I'm interested in, let's say your school is engineering, is specialized in engineering. So maybe you mention I'm interested in math and science and engineering. So your school has great programs. And the other questions you want to ask are there certain majors that you don't allow? Like, I would tell players that if you want to get your nursing degree, this is not a great place for you. We have a great nursing program. It's a small program, but your senior year, you won't be able to play because of your rotations. So I will be giving you money that another player that can contribute to the team will have. However, if you really love Rutgers, we have tremendous science programs and pre-med and you could, you know, take those courses and then do do a graduate program in nursing here or someplace else, and become a nurse. But there are some schools that will restrict your majors, and if your education is really important to you, you want to take that into account. If all you want to do is go there and play softball and become a champion in softball, that's fine. You can take courses in coaching. You can take other courses that will that where you can play, and you can also build a career off in athletics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all you need to figure out what you want, and go to the coach. When
Easier said than done at 17.
At 17, it is. But there are some kids who definitely have a program going all the way. And I did have a player who came in, and her mother wanted her to be a biology teacher in high school. And the mother called me up complaining all the time that she can't study. She's getting bad grades because it's so noisy in her dorm. And I'm like, it is a college. You can go to the library and study. But what I found out was she didn't like science. And I said, so she went from a D student to, in her freshman year, I had this, conversation with her. And I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, I want to be a teacher. And I said, well, what do you love? She goes, I love art. I said, well, how about an art teacher? She said, oh, yeah. And she got straight A's after that. She had to take her, all the courses that are required to graduate, and she got A's in those as well because she was happy in her major, right? You might say, well, that's a limited experience, but getting a degree from college in anything will put you out ahead of most people for a job. So if
I remember you being like, did you have to go to UCLA to become a realtor?
I don't think I ever said that.
You did say it a few times. But you brought up something that made me think, is that you spoke earlier about coaching not just the player, but the person. So it's that idea of holistic coaching, that you didn't just care about, or coaches shouldn't only care about your position and your batting average, but also you're here for an education. Are you being educated? Do you have a plan? Are you happy? So great coaches don't just coach the player, they coach the person.
Yeah. That just reminded me of another player I had who
Dad, we could talk about players for 2 hours.
She was failing. She wasn't doing well. She wasn't failing, but she wasn't doing well, and she was unhappy. And I called her to, after practice, and let's sit here and talk about what's going on, because she wasn't happy. You could see in her playing, she wasn't happy, and wasn't only her major; it was her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was doing drugs and basically hid it from her. And she was so disappointed in her boyfriend, basically, lying to her, that it was difficult. And I said to her, well, you got a couple of choices. If you think that he's going to continue on his line, you're very young. You should get out and, do something else. And
drugs are a difficult thing to get away from.
She was in the wrong major too, and so she got into her teaching major. Is now married with a little boy, and her husband, I think, just got deployed someplace. He's in the military, but she is also a teacher. She's doing what she loves. She has a child. She has a dog. She has a family. And she turned her life around by making the right decisions and by having a team that supported her. I've had players with eating disorders who I've told that look, you need to take care of this right now. Your health is the most important thing. You need to go get healthy. Our team will always support you. So when you come back here, you will be supported. And it was your teammates who brought these concerns to me first. And then as we watched, then we know you have a problem. And she went out, got healthy, came back and played. And that's one of the biggest success stories I can tell you about a team, because
She never lost her scholarship. You let her go
No.
get healthy.
No, she never let her.
Again,
lost her
very
scholarship.
rare.
Yeah. And when I was brought into Rutgers, a lot of coaches that are brought into programs will get rid of players. And I felt that I represented Rutgers. Rutgers gave them the scholarship. It wasn't given by the coach. It was approved by the coach. It was recommended by the coach. It was Rutgers that gave them the scholarship. So I feel that the institution should be responsible for it. And Rutgers was really very good about that. You really couldn't. I agreed with their philosophy of you can't get rid of a person just to get rid of them because they didn't play well, which happens at schools.
Yes.
They don't play well. They
They
get rid
kind of
of
like
you.
push you out. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether they can do it or not, they're going to make you practice as hard as you can, and they're never going to play you. And for a great athlete, that's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But so, the whole athlete, I really look at coaching as being a teacher. And I know that there are a lot of players out there. There are some players out there that felt like I mistreated them or something. But, let's say I've had favorite players. I've never treated them differently. So, and I think that's the key. If you have rules that you set up, those rules need to apply to everybody. And, you can't have favorites in that way, but you can have favorites as people that don't break the rules and work hard are going to be your favorites.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, it's about our time here. Thank you so much for coming to the bullpen. The real Coach Nelson. Any last piece of advice for parents, coaches, anything that you want to say before we wrap?
No, I think we've covered most everything. I'll probably think of things when I go to sleep tonight, but
I will tell
wanna
a quick
thank you for
story.
that.
Of course. I will tell you I want to tell a quick story about you because I think it's kind of shaped who I am as a person. He was my coach when I was young. I think I was
12.
10 to like 14.
Oh, yeah,
You coached
yeah.
me. So I was a catcher, and before games, first of all, I was only going to start if I was the best catcher. There was no favoritism, and I had to be the best by like everyone thought I was the best, not just him, right? So he would throw balls to me to teach me how to block because at that age, that's the number one thing you need. A lot of the pitchers have trouble to, throw strikes. So I would put my hands behind my back, I have all my gear on, and he would just pelt balls at me, and I'd have to block them, go side to side, and some of the other parents would like kind of be like, "Is that okay?" And like, "Is
Is that
she all
abuse?
right?"
Is that child abuse?
But you know what I learned is the power of pushing people past what others think is comfortable. And I see it today as a mother. I see it as a business person. The ability to really put your hands behind your back and learn how to block properly so that you can do your job is so powerful. And, just really the ability to earn my position. I didn't get my position. I earned my position. So I really thank you for that, Dad, because I don't think I'd be where I am in life or in my career if you hadn't have taught me that.
I remember another story.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Well, this is kind of a good bad story. When
It's not the tanning story, is it?
no, it's the one. No, it's the one your feet were hurting you because you didn't have the right shoes or something, and we were playing, and you were pitching. You weren't really a pitcher, but you were pitching.
Oh yeah, I would when other people were hurt or tired, I would.
And you brought into the game, and the bases were loaded with 2 outs, and it was maybe 3-1 or something. And the other coach calls for a pitch out. I'm like, time out. Like, their bases loaded, coach.
It was 3-2.
3-2, yeah. They were bases loaded, coach, and we can't pitch out here because it walks a run in. Oh, yeah. I don't know if he lost track or what happened, but
I think his daughter was also a pitcher, but
Yeah,
she was
is.
the real pitcher. I was not really a pitcher.
So that was funny.
And we were young. That was in Oakland when we used to go play in those Bergen County tournaments.
No, that was
Or Passaic.
No, it was Morris County tournament.
No, we were playing the Bells, but we
Yeah.
were up there in Oakland.
Okay, maybe. My memory is getting old.
Old Jersey softball stories here.
I also remember when you would come in and catch some of my then pitchers.
Oh, yeah. Well, my thumb was broken like my whole senior year. So,
Well, they broke a lot of men's hands.
yeah. Because when someone throws like a good rise ball or a good drop ball, your thumb tends to break easily.
Especially if it's on the inside corner.
Yeah. Those were the good old days. Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining us in the bullpen. If you want to learn more about Coach Nelson, go to the Hellas, Hellas softball page on Instagram. Go like, share, and tell all your Greek softball friends. Let them know that the team is looking to fill with strong players. So we're happy to meet them.